So we're going to talk a little bit about business planning and how to run through your business plan, as well as walking through your financial statements. So when working with individuals, we always want to start with your goals. So what does that long-term plan look like? Where do you see yourself? Where do you see your operation? What does that look like 10 years from now? Once you've kind of determined where you want to be in the future, we're going to break those down into short-term goals. We identify your short-term goals to be anything that can happen in the next 3 to 5 years. Here, we want to make sure that you have got SMART goals. So what that means is that they're specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So we've got some listed different types of goals that we like to measure. For example, if I've got a produce operation, it's my second year, I've been working at the farmer's market mostly. A goal for 2021 could be that I would like to increase my customer base by 10% by the end of 2021. So there, you're able to measure it. It's a clear-cut goal, and you've got the timeline put onto it. From there, we're going to move into market research and analysis. So what this means is doing some research in not only your target area, but as well in your industry. So are there some key trends that are happening? Is there the local food movement? Do you have different types of products that are becoming available? Are people looking for ready-to-eat meals, prepackaged roast kits? What are some key factors going on? Once you've done a little research in that market, you really want to make sure that you understand your demographics. So within those target markets, what's the average income level look like? What's the average household look like? Do these individuals have children? Really digging into what that market is all about. If you've been able to have a couple seasons of your business, or 10, then looking into some customer feedback is always really critical when determining your market. You also want to make sure that you're keeping a good thumb on your competitor analysis. So this doesn't mean just identifying who your competitors are. This means identifying what products they offer, what services they offer, and then comparing what you're doing to see if there's any way that you can be a niche, or really focusing on how you can differentiate yourself. I say that with lightly because you want to make sure that you're tracking what your competitors are doing, but not just repeating whatever your competitors are doing. Just a key point there. On your target customers, we're going to dive in a little further here. So if we're going to use the example that I used earlier, where I've got a produce operation and tomatoes is one of my key products, I'm going to sell them at the farmer's market in 2021. So when you're looking at that, you would want to identify who visits the farmer's market. So we all know there's a couple of different categories of individuals that frequent a farmer's market. What's their income level look like? Do they have the ability to purchase your product? Are there services that you can fulfill that they are lacking? Are they looking for a meal kit? Are they looking for recipes? Are they familiar with cooking? Do they need some help cooking for larger groups? Really identifying what those needs are. When you're thinking about your target customers, you also want to make sure that you break that out into retail versus wholesale, because they do have two different needs. So retail includes things like farmers market, direct to consumer, CSAs, so community support agriculture, or selling at a roadside stand or farm stand. When we talk about our wholesale customers, those are selling to either a school, a university, or to restaurants, which is really common. The reason that you want to differentiate the two is they will have two separate needs. For example, your distribution strategy is going to look much different if you are taking totes of product to Houchins IGA, for example, versus a couple crates to your local farmer's market. So just kind of identifying where you'd like to focus there. I also like to note here that your target customer doesn't have to stay the same every year. If you want to grow into that wholesale market, then that's totally fine, and you can put that in your long-term goals. And you can kind of build up your strategy, build up your marketing, and develop those relationships to make that happen. We've hit on our key demographics of those target customers. And next, we're going to move into why those customers buy what they do. So what do they value? Do they value the local factor? Are they looking for organic produce? Are they looking for grass-fed beef? You know, what are those key pieces that they are looking for in their products? You also want to make sure that you identify why they make the decisions. Are they motivated by economics? Or are they motivated by taste? Or are they motivated by the fact that you share a lot of information on Instagram and they feel like they're part of your farm brand, right? So you really want to kind of dive into why they make those decisions. Next piece on your business plan is your products and services. Here you want to break down what your products and services are going to be and then key features of those. As we've been talking through the marketing piece here, we kind of recognize that each customer group has a different set of motivations to buy the product. So you want to make sure that you're identifying those features and using them as you're selling. So local, is it fresh? Do you have frozen beef that people are able to use later? You know, is it organically certified? Here you want to make sure that you identify the benefit that your customers are receiving from the products and services that you're offering. Pricing. The hard part about marketing is it's an art as well as a science, right? You need to have the data to support the creative thinking. So that's where we're going to dive into how to pick the best price. You want to make sure that your pricing is consistent with your marketing efforts. What this means is where you're marketing your product, you need to be consistent with that price point. So for example, if you had a higher end product and you're looking to target the demographic with high disposable income, that price needs to be pretty consistent with that group. However, if you are looking to target a different group, then you need to make sure that that pricing is consistent. Some considerations when thinking about pricing your product. First, what is that cost of production? So this includes anything that it takes to get that plant or that animal directly to that consumer you want to include. So this includes our cost of goods sold as well as our operating expenses. We also work into, what is the willingness and ability to pay? Make sure that your price is consistent with that. And then you do want to make sure that you are aware of what your competition is priced at as well. It's okay to be higher. It's okay to be lower. You just want to make sure that you understand where you're at and if you need to make adjustments moving forward. Diving a little further into our marketing strategy here. So when you develop a promotion strategy, we're going to pull together all the pieces that we've talked about. What your target customers are looking for, what your goals are, and then what your expected sales are for the next year. So this means that one of my we're going to use the example I started with at the beginning. One of my target goals was to increase my customer base by 10% in 2021. Part of my promotion strategy would be to implement a monthly newsletter. In this newsletter, I'm going to have recipes that are seasonal, that feature key products, and increase the traction that I get on my email newsletter. So that would be one of my sales and promotion strategies moving forward. When we say a dedicated sales representative, that doesn't mean you have to go hire somebody. You can if you would like. But what this means is that there is someone on your team that's responsible for all promotion strategies, or at least that they get done. We realize with a lot of small business and beginning businesses, it's usually just a one-man show, one-woman show, however your team is organized, and that it's, you're usually running most of that. The key part here is to make sure that you've got one person identified that is going to make sure that it gets done. Some key tactics here that you want to explore: your website, social media, email marketing, radio, signs, events, and printed materials. On the website and social media platforms, you do not have to have them all. I have several clients that come and they're like, okay, so I need to have Instagram, I need to have a TikTok, and I need to have Snapchat, and I need to have a Facebook page. No, You need to have whatever you feel like you and your business can manage effectively. If you enjoy using Instagram, then use Instagram. If you think you can manage a website and Facebook, manage a website and Facebook. The key here is making sure that you set yourself up for success and that you're doing something manageable. Here's just some key tips on Facebook marketing. A lot of our clients still use Facebook because it has a very broad audience. I know a lot of younger generations use all the different new types of social media, but you still have a large number on Facebook. And so it's a really good way to reach a very large audience. It's important that you are posting relevant content. So this goes back to our target customers. You're wanting to make sure that you post things that they will find interesting and relevant to their lives and things that they will be encouraged to share. It's important that it's not just very salesy. So I know we have on here, make your post less promotional. People buy the brand because they feel like they are part of your brand. So this is a key piece here that you want to bring them in, let them see a little backstage action so that they can really feel a part of your operation. There are a couple of third-party scheduling services that do post on all your social media platforms for you. One example is Hootsuite, and there are several others. Unfortunately, we have found that those usually don't get as much traction. So if all possible, if you're going to utilize Facebook, utilize that schedule post option. You can schedule post a couple in advance. So if you wanted to set 1 or 2 days a week that you're going to sit down and schedule your social media post, then you can sit down and schedule them for a couple of days in advance or even up to a week or two. So this is a really good thing that people use during the busy seasons of the year. Here's a few key tips on Instagram. So if you've got your location tagged on that video or that picture, you get a 79% more engagement. So if at all possible, put that location marker there. Most Instagram users use the app during the week, with Tuesdays and Thursdays as the most engagement. So some key times we've got listed there would be 11 a.m. to 1, and then that window from 7 to 9 p.m. Avoid 3 p.m. This is not just for Instagram. We found that emails like newsletters sent around this time don't have a very high open rate. And then if you're able and you feel comfortable to do promotional videos, then those get twice as much engagement than photos. That includes on Facebook as well. So moving into some of the nitty-gritty part of the business plan here. When you talk about your ownership structure, this means, is it an LLC? Are you organized as a sole proprietorship? Is it a partnership, an S Corp? And if you have questions about the differences or the pros and cons of each one, we can talk through that. You want to identify your key personnel. So is it going to be you? Are you going to have a team of 2 or 3 people? Are you going to have a team of 3 people year round with seasonal staff? Just kind of working through who's going to be the key operators on your business or on your farm. You also want to identify your wages and then what kind of training programs you're going to have. I realize this doesn't have to go in depth. A lot of farming is learning on the job. And just a key piece here, for example, our meat processing facilities, they usually have some kind of a training program set up. If you've got GAP certifications, you would list that here. On your facility and equipment needs, if it's a startup business, you'll want to include those here, as well as what your facility, like a layout is. And this is especially important if you are applying for funding options, and then listing out what your equipment needs will be. We like to include a production process, just an overview in that business plan, because it gives someone a good, like I said, overview of what you're doing. And then if you do apply for funding, then whoever's looking at your application has a clear picture on, okay, this is what AB Farms really like or is doing in 2021. And they can kind of walk through that in their mind. Financials. So what I want to do here is walk through some key financial statements that businesses use and that we find are important, and then a real brief on some record keeping. So your startup cost, this is relevant to your beginning businesses, but you can also use this section as a expansion. So if you're expanding your business, you'll want to include what it's going to cost if you're buying land, your insurance, any kind of permitting, certifications, what's it going to take to get water to the facility, sewer, septic, all that fun stuff, as on top of your construction and your equipment costs there. The reason we like to start with this is it identifies what you're going to need. So as Amanda walked through earlier about the different types of funding options, you need to identify what you need, and then we can figure out, okay, well, you can get this paid for through this route, and this can come from this route. When we create projections, we look through and create an income statement, a cash flow, and a balance sheet. And we're gonna walk through those real quick. Your income statement shows a period of time. Typically, this is on a per year basis, and most people have January through December operating schedules. However, every business is a little different. Typically, most of our clients want or use a cash versus an accrual system. However, if you've got questions specific to the accrual system, feel free to reach out and we can walk through those. And the big pieces that make up your income statement would be sales. This includes all your income producing activities, your cost of goods sold, which we talked about a little bit earlier. Those include anything that takes to get that product to your consumer. Your expenses, that's what it takes to keep the lights on. So that's your electric bill, your water bill, your rent payment would go here if you've got one, insurance cost, marketing. And then finally, that net income is the net income or loss that the operation brought in that year. Your balance sheet also shows a point in time. This is typically on a per year basis, January through December, and just shows what you own versus what you owe. And then our cash flow statement. So this tracks net cash. So your net cash inflow versus or minus your cash outflow. What I really like a cash flow statement is because here is where you track your loan payments. So either land or equipment or building payments. Sometimes the income statement will look really good, and then we'll move to the cash flow statement. And once you factor in all those loan payments, sometimes the bottom line doesn't look as good as it did. And that's okay. It's just good to be aware of where you're at. So we really like to use a cash flow statement, especially with those new businesses when you do have more, sometimes that loan or it's a little capital intensive process, then it's a really good way to track where you're at financially. Creating a monthly cash flow is also important, but it's important to remember your cash flow is not a rocket ship, so perfection isn't necessary. And then you want to make sure that you're putting in good data, because garbage in, garbage out. So we really want to make sure that we are putting in good, accurate prices, accurate expenses, and we can definitely help you walk through that process. On your monthly cash flows, this, especially in agriculture, since it is a seasonal business, it's important to know when those lean points of the year are. So if we're going to use the produce business that I've been using this evening, June and August might be two of my larger sales months. I will identify, and maybe January and February is when I have a lot of expenses, but not a whole lot of income. So it might be important for me to take a percentage of my sales in June, July, and August and keep that for either the next year or to pay off expenses from earlier this year, or to put into a savings account for unexpected expenses. I feel like in agriculture, we're always managing the weather. And so it's always important to know, as we talked about earlier with risk, that you have something there to help mitigate that risk. While we want to make sure everyone has a record keeping system, this doesn't mean that it has to be really, really fancy or intricate or overly complicated. Yes, a lot of people use QuickBooks, but it's not the only system out there. When working with my clients, I always want to make sure that whatever record keeping system you put in place is something that you will use as the business owner and that your staff will use if you've got employees or a spouse or somebody else that works with you. If you are working with a CPA, sometimes it's helpful to ask what they use and then to kind of walk through what their process is so that when you're reconciling at the end of the year, preparing for tax season, that that process might be a little smoother. Again, pick something that you know you can use. Some examples, like I mentioned, QuickBooks, just pen and paper. Excel's another good option. And then Google Sheets also has a template online that you can use that's been really helpful. And some key things to track would be your income, your expenses. If you've got employees, making sure you're keeping track of those personnel records, product volumes, product types. Those are some really good things to keep track of so that you are keeping your heartbeat on your business. So you cannot measure what you don't track. So we always like to include a couple key performance measures when working through your business plan. These don't have to be complicated. They overlap with a lot of what we're tracking with our finances. This could include number of customers, sales, number of transactions, and sales per transaction. So the reason that we do include the number in sales per transaction is that this could also be a goal that you have moving forward. So for example, if you're selling at a farmer's market and your average transaction price is $5.49, if you decide that you would like to add additional products or create value-added products, then maybe that sales per transaction might increase to $7.68 per transaction. The key here is that you're managing and watching what is going on and what your customers are buying and that kind of thing. When creating the sales forecast, we usually create a 3-year or a 5-year projection, depending on the business. Most of the time it's on that 3-year period. And we do like to make sure that we break it down by product line. So before, when I was talking about all income producing activities, this means everything that's bringing in income to your business. So if we're going to use the produce method example that I've been working with, I know I've talked about tomatoes, but I also sell cucumbers and I sell squash and I also sell cut flowers. So here we would make sure that we break that down into, if we can break it down into each vegetable, then that's even better. But we could break that down into just the fresh produce and then fresh cut flowers. This just kind of helps you track what key products are moving. Do you have one product that moves better than others? And is there something that you might be able to introduce, or is there a product that's not selling very well at all and you may need to just not either grow that crop next year or not bring that to the market? So I would like to identify a couple veteran resources as well. First would be the Homegrown by Heroes piece. So this is offered by the Kentucky Department of Ag. It is a marketing program that goes hand in hand with the Kentucky Proud program, but it's only for veterans. So they do offer a separate logo that you can use to market your product, as well as some promotional opportunities. The Farmer Veteran Coalition has been a really good resource for a lot of our veteran clients. And they do have an annual scholarship each year and an opportunity to win a Kubota tractor. I'm not sure if any of you all were able to do or attend the virtual conference this year, but we found that very, very engaging, and we appreciate the ability to attend. And then I did want to mention our key partners for this program. One is the Kentucky Department of Ag. So if you've got marketing questions or any questions on the Kentucky Proud promotional grant or anything with or farmers markets, then we can definitely direct you to Nancy Monroe, who's our contact there. The Kentucky Hort Council handles all things green, so anything from orchards to lawn care to vegetable production. So if you've got any kind of questions about production or sales, we can definitely get you in touch with them. And then our Kentucky Sheep and Goat Development Office is partnering with us as they are our small ruminant experts. So if you're interested in sheep or goat production, then we can definitely get you in touch with them. Another resource from the Sheep and Goat Development Office is they have something called a Small Ruminant Profit School. And this is a year-long online program that you can walk through at your own pace and learn everything there is to learn about the in and out of a sheep or a goat. You'll talk parasites, you'll learn the breeding habits, you'll learn what times of year they need to shear, what breeds of sheep, all that fun stuff. And so if you're interested, we can definitely get you in touch with them. And the key here is that if you've got questions, we are here to help. KCARD, we do work with clients on business planning, financial projections, and grant facilitation. So as Amanda mentioned earlier, the Value Added Producer Grant is open. So if it's something you want to look into, then we can definitely talk through. Or if it's something that might be a good fit in the future. I've got Angela's contact there so that, because she is our Kentucky contact. So if you've got specific questions on Kentucky programs, Angela or Amanda will be your contact there. And I'm going to check our chat here to check for questions. Abby, how are we looking on our chats?
I'm not seeing anything, so.
Okay. Amanda, was there anything else that you wanted to make sure that we covered I
can't think of anything.
Okay. Well, I do appreciate everyone's time this evening. And like I said, if you've got any questions at all, please feel free to give us a call or an email. We'll also make sure that you are signed up for the AgVets newsletter. We are looking to do that quarterly. The next one will come out in March. And then check your email because we will be highlighting our next workshop. So that'll be with the Kentucky Hort Council and the University of Kentucky. And that'll be in April. And we're looking forward to our networking event this summer. So thanks again, and we look forward to talking with you more.